Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
So, guys, we have scores missing, hundreds evacuated after a clay landslide strikes a village in Norway. At least 26 people are unaccounted for, and hundreds of people have been evacuated after a sheet of clay caused a devastating landslide in a picturesque village just to the north of Oslo.
Oh, that looks terribly cold.
Yeah, terribly cold, and it looks like a huge sinkhole, really, that has developed here. Over 200 people evacuated after this massive sheet of clay caused a devastating landslide in the village of Ask, about 10 miles north of Oslo, around 4 a.m. So these people were hit with this in the middle of the night when they were sleeping.
I don't know. Could you imagine? It's horrible.
Yeah, the situation's very dramatic. It's sad. You can see the before and after pictures here. At least 5 to 9 in hospitals, several houses destroyed, up to 200 evacuated. And, it gets me thinking about mud flood. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that could be part of the problem here, and the ground is saturated, and they're not giving us the full truth about the changes in the earth.
Yeah, every area has its issues, and we'll try to get another best area video up today after the people that we are working with and on. Every area has its issues. It's kind of like pick your poison, fire, ice, water. It's going to be something that we're facing in these times. Look at the car there, and look at that huge, cavernous gully that has just developed right in the middle of all those houses.
I know, it's so little compared to that big hole.
Yeah. So we'll send our prayers to everybody there, and let's hope that doesn't keep progressing. Now, same thing with Croatia. Now let's, again, send our prayers to the people over there. So giant cracks have been discovered after this quake, which has reported at least 7 deaths. And unfortunately, they'll still be looking for more, and hopefully, if there's anybody that's still savable, they'll find them and save them. So interesting that they have found these cracks, and this is the area in Croatia. There's video here for you guys to see. It's as if these fissures completely destroyed a small rural road, and giant cracks as well. And a couple of you guys said, did you see Mr. MBB's video? Well, yeah, he put a video out the day before, and he had 4 different photos sent to him by people in Croatia. And there was this strange light coming down onto the ground. And he blew it up, and it kind of looks like there might be, maybe there's something up there sending this beam of light down to the ground. You gotta wonder, one day later, you get this 6.4, and actually, the previous day we had a couple of smaller ones that did do some damage.
I know. I mean, they're going to have to get a little bit better at covering up what they're doing. That's so obvious.
Now, you said your impressions were that this was probably going to happen, but that this was perhaps, again, an amplification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they enhanced it.
Interesting. And so, if you look at the vehicle, if it is a vehicle, it kind of does have, and he does some negative imaging. It kind of does have almost a classic saucerish shape here. And yesterday we were talking about the connection with the NAZI and certain ETs and technology agreements, things like that. So, do you feel like there are Homo sapiens in this, or do you feel like there's something a little different?
Actually, those feel more reptilian.
Okay. Yeah, interesting too, because like when you, and Mr. MBB is, of course, he's fun. He's fun. He does a great job at staying above the fray. He's really careful the way he words things. He's very smart in how he does things here, and he has a huge following. This reminded me immediately of Moses, and they were led by a cloud, a pillar of a cloud during the day, and they were led by a pillar of fire by night. Immediately, it gave me that impression. You?
Yeah, one absolutely has to ask ask the question, is this the type of technology they had then?
Well, yeah, certainly if they are beings that are thousands of years ahead of us technologically, if not millions, what would their technology look like? Well, obviously, it would be pretty awe-inspiring. But when you think about that description, that looks kind of like a pillar of fire, I would say. I mean, if I was alive, maybe 2,800 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and, a sheep herder, and looking at this, how would I describe this to the neighbor? I would say, well, I think I saw a pillar of fire. It seemed to be emanating from this cloud. I don't know. Maybe it's a sign from God.
Right. Well, they did their best with what they saw, and that all they did was try to repeat what they saw with the words they understood then.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's so interesting. Again, this is the apocalypse, the great unveiling. There's so much coming out, and we talked about that 180-day countdown as well. We'll see what they give us. We know there'll always be a spin on it. And you have at least 12 climbers dead as heavy snows hit Iran. There's a lot of heavy snow going on in so many areas. Here, also in Russia, they're getting kind of hammered. Par for the course, December, sure, in Siberia, it's going to be snowy. But again, the records are breaking left and right. And we are really, keeping our eyes on that volcanic activity as well. So a new eruption at Soufriere, St. Vincent volcano, alert level raised to orange. This is St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is in the Caribbean. And, it's not too far from Pele. And Pele, has been raised as well. So we're watching Pele. We know Etna's been erupting. We're keeping an eye on Vesuvius. Because, if we do get those two going at the same time, then, Casey told us, hang on to your hats because the big changes will be rolling in. Meanwhile, we have China limiting electricity for millions, warning of a potential coal shortage. Large swaths of China are scrambling to restrict electricity use this winter, just when things are getting cold and everything has got other issues going on as well. We have, again here, energy being rationed and people, as they were in Aspen, going cold.
Yep. So it just shows how we need to be self-sufficient.
That is so important because we don't know what's going to happen at any single moment. And, this just came out 31 minutes ago. U.S. bomber mission over Persian Gulf aimed at cautioning Iran. Our friend Steve over Israeli News Live, yes, he often is, sounding the alarms and not always do things come through. But, he's really sounding the alarms right now, kind of like saying that it feels like something is in the process and also almost like unstoppable at this point, like something is just going to roll out, and he's expecting that before we get to January 20th for sure, and perhaps before we even get to January. So in other words, could be any time right now. So we need to be again prepared for anything. And here we see out of SF Gate, bracing for a possible Iranian-linked attack. U.S. officials warn the threat are definitely very real. And this is more talking about abroad, though, assets abroad, particularly in Iraq. Meanwhile, this is out of RT. Have we learned nothing from these sci-fi movies? Boston Dynamics, who works often for DARPA, Advanced Dancing Robots, both amuse and scare. And the dexterity is amazing. There's video here you can watch these guys. Oh, wow. I mean, we're talking, it feels like we're at the Terminator time right now with what the technology is looking like.
It really does. And what's really creepy is when they show these things having a good time.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And again, guys, these are roughly, humanish size. We saw some things like this. We saw 4 of them that were the size of, the size of a full-size Dodge or Chevy or Ford truck. Almost like the size of a tank.
Yeah, they were huge and intimidating.
Yeah, and they were in Vegas. and we were talking to one of our EA family members who's still in that area yesterday, and they said the amount of activity at Nellis, they've never seen it like this busy as what's going on in Nellis right now. Way, way, way above average as far as the amount of activity.
I know, it's really ramping up.
The Army's going to deploy autonomous bug drones that spy on people, and this is over in the UK. And there you go. So you're going to have these things buzzing around. And, of course, we got those bigger robots that you might see deployed to the streets someday soon.
Yep. We just watched a movie, had something kind of like those on it.
It did. And an extinct woolly rhino. I heard about woolly mammoths, but I didn't know there were woolly rhinos. Found in excellent condition after being frozen in the far eastern Russian permafrost for at least 20,000 years, so they say. And the permafrost is thawing. And meanwhile, we have record snow falling too at the same time. So again, things are changing depending on the area you're in. And so you got to wonder, how did this guy freeze so fast and stay so well put together? Now with the permafrost too, it's going to release so much more emissions, methane, up into the atmosphere than carbon emissions do, and really, rapidly advance that climate change, quote unquote. But at the same time, we have record lows going as well. So interesting, though. It is interesting to see. And then all the new species, we'll give you an update, see if we could find that article, because you had found an article talking about like the hundreds of new species that we found this year. There's been so many new species found, again, mutations. In these times when the magnetosphere is down, cosmic rays come in, everything changes.
It does, and we're watching it change right before our eyes.
Guys, thanks so much for being part of this family. Make sure you click the bell and get the notifications on both channels. And also thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Anybody that needs to reach us for a session, reach out at EEARTS at protonmail.com or evolutionaryenergyarts at gmail.com. Stay prepared out there. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.